Some battles are remembered because they changed history, others because of how they ended. A last stand isn't about victory, it's about defiance. It's about refusing to run when every instinct says you should. Today, we're looking at the moments in history where small groups of warriors faced impossible odds and fought anyway. From 21 Sikh soldiers holding off 10,000 attackers, to a lone Viking blocking an entire bridge, to the last samurai charging into gunfire. These are some of history's greatest last stands. I'm Matt, and this is Battlefield Legends, true accounts of ordinary men in extraordinary moments. In 1897, on the border of British India, stood a lonely little outpost called Saragarhi. Inside were 21 Sikh soldiers of the 36th Sikhs. At sunrise, the hills began to move. What looked at first like shadows became an army. Over 10,000 Afghan tribesmen surrounded the fort. The Sikhs signalled their commander, "Under attack, need reinforcements." But reinforcements were too far away. They were told to evacuate. Instead, they locked the gates. For hours, every attack was beaten back. Ladders chopped down, walls defended with bayonets. When fire broke through the gates, the Sikhs charged straight into the flames. When the fort finally fell, the last surviving defender stood alone in the courtyard, firing until his final breath. Over 600 attackers were found dead around the fort. 21 men who refused to leave their post. During the surprise English attack at Stamford Bridge, the Vikings fell back across a narrow wooden crossing, all except one. A lone berserker, wielding a Dane axe the size of a man, stepped forward and blocked the entire bridge. Every English soldier who rushed him was cut down. Spears couldn't reach him. Arrows bounced off his shield. For nearly an hour, one man slowed an entire army. Finally, the English had to paddle a soldier beneath the slats of the bridge, who drove a spear upward into the berserker's body. Only then did he fall. He bought his people precious time and earned a place in legend. In 1863, 65 French Foreign Legionnaires escorting a convoy found themselves surrounded near the village of Cameron. The officer, Captain Danjou, who had a wooden hand, told his men they would stand and fight. Inside a small adobe farmhouse, they held off 2,000 Mexican soldiers from dawn until late afternoon. When ammunition ran out, they used bayonets. When bayonets broke, they used fists. When the farmhouse caught fire, they fought their way out of it. Only 3 men remained. They charged forward with bayonets fixed, and the Mexican commander, astonished by their bravery, ordered his men to cease fire. He said, "These are not men, they are devils." The Legion still honours Cameron every year over Captain Danjou's wooden hand. In 1877, Japan was modernising. Guns, railways, telegraphs. The samurai era was ending. Seigo Takamori, the man later known as the Last Samurai, refused to accept it. With a small band of traditional warriors, armed mostly with swords, he faced the Imperial Japanese Army. 30,000 rifles and artillery. At Shiroyama Hill, Seigo's men were encircled. Artillery tore the hillside apart, but the samurai would not retreat. Just before dawn, they charged. A final attack, straight into modern firepower. Almost all were killed. Sego fell with them. Shiroyama didn't change history. It symbolised the end of an age. In 1527, Rome was stormed by an army of 20,000 mercenaries. Their target? Pope Clement VII. Standing between the Pope and annihilation were 189 Swiss guards. When the walls were breached, the Swiss formed a tight circle and began a fighting retreat through St. Peter's Square. 40 guards escorted the Pope to safety. The remainder, outnumbered more than 100 to 1, made their last stand on the steps of the Basilica. 147 Swiss guards died holding the line. Their sacrifice saved the Pope, and the Swiss Guard still swears its oath on that very spot. In 74 BC, a small band of Cretan hoplites escorting wounded Romans were ambushed in the mountains by a Mithridatic force, hundreds strong. The Cretans formed a tight circle, shields outward, archers inside, and then, incredibly, they began to sing. Arrow after arrow dropped enemies on the slopes. Every advance was met with spears thrusts and short, brutal counterattacks. When arrows ran out, they switched to swords. When swords broke, they hurled stones. When stones were gone, they fought with their bare hands. When Roman scouts finally reached the ridge at sunset, the Cretans were still standing, bruised, bleeding, but alive, and every wounded man they defended survived. In 1915, at Gallipoli, a small Australian unit pushed too far up a ridge and suddenly found themselves cut off, completely surrounded. Instead of retreating, they dug a horseshoe-shaped trench and prepared for their last stand. For 2 days they held out. Running low on ammunition, they scavenged rifles from the dead. When water ran out, they drank dew from their helmets. When the Ottomans launched a final assault, the Australians fixed bayonets and fought hand to hand. By the time friendly forces reached them, only a few were still alive, exhausted, blooded, but still holding the ridge. Their stand didn't win the campaign, but it became a symbol of Anzac courage. These last stands span centuries. Different cultures, different weapons, different enemies, but they all share one thing. A last stand is never about winning. It's about refusing to surrender what you believe is worth more than your own life. 21 Sikhs in a wooden fort, a lone Viking on a bridge, legionnaires in a burning house, samurai charging into gunfire, Swiss guards protecting their Pope, Cretans singing as they fought, Anzacs holding a ridge no one else could reach. They all knew they weren't walking away, but they stood anyway, and that's why, centuries later, we still remember them. Before we wrap up, I want to know something from you. Of all the last stands in this video, which one do you think was the most heroic, and why? Let me know in the comments. I'm really curious which story stood out the most. Hit like and subscribe for more Battlefield legends, and when you're ready, watch this next story. It's even more unbelievable. The battlefield never forgets, and neither do we. Until the next battle, thanks for watching.